So here on 45th Avenue, just off of 21st Street, is where Ryo Oyamata, a 21-year-old Japanese student, was killed as a pedestrian. His family asked me to handle his case to find out what happened, because the people who struck him were on-duty police officers in a radio motor patrol unit, the typical squad cars you see. The police claim that they had their lights and sirens engaged and that Ryo just walked in front of them. But it turned out that the reality was quite different. Lessons learned in that case are that whenever police cause harm to a person, immediately this section of the NYPD called the IAB, or Internal Affairs Bureau, swoops in and takes control of the entire investigation. And you have to let IAB do its thing before anyone can get any evidence of what happened. And in the IAB process, what you find is that there are people whose job it is to basically protect the NYPD institutionally, and occasionally that means exposing to punishment police officers who do wrong and harm people, police officers who commit crimes. But when it comes to a case of police officer negligence or recklessness, IAB, as far as I can tell from the Ryo Oyamata case and several other cases I've been involved in, they view their job as covering up the wrongdoing and the harmful conduct by the police. And that's what happened in this case, because when the IAB was done and we finally got our copies of the videotape using the Freedom of Information law, what we found is that there were no sirens and that the lights were turned on only after Ryo Oyamata had been struck by a speeding police car going at least 40 miles an hour and killed. The police claimed that they were on their way to respond to an assault in progress involving an intruder with a knife. But when we got to the bottom of it, what we found is that they were not called to respond to that call. Yeah, there was such a call that had been made. Other units had been assigned to it, not that unit. And so their story was that they decided from quite some distance away on their own to converge on that spot. They further explained that because they didn't want to tip off the perp with the knife, that they kept their lights and sirens off. So contrary to the original story, there were no lights and sirens, they finally admitted. But the reason why is in order to catch the bad guy. And really, far too much of the police conduct and mentality is oriented towards getting the bad guy, whatever that means to the police. And there are bad guys out there, and we're glad and we're lucky to have the police who will help protect us against those people and help bring them to accountability when they cause harm. But we have also decided as a society to make police responsible for negligently inflicted harm when it happens in the roadways. And when it comes to that kind of harm, giving it to the police is a disaster. They do a terrible job. They're not interested in it. They don't think it is their job. And they're as likely to cover it up, especially when there are police involved in causing the harm, as they are to bring anything to light and make sure that anyone who engaged in wrongful conduct is going to face consequences. Another lesson from the Ryo Oyamata case was that, we begged and pleaded with the DOT to make this street a lot safer just by installing some speed humps. It's just a long stretch without any traffic control. There's so few intersections in New York City that have no traffic control, like this one up here of 22nd Street and 45th Drive. So at least put in a speed hump or two to stop drivers from being able to just gun it for what amounts to 2 or maybe more avenue blocks before they hit a signal or traffic device of any kind. And DOT just said, no, we're not going to do that. We can't do that because the city can't have a practice of making changes dictated by families of fatal crash victims. So who knows when the next crash will be on the street. But for Ryo Oyamata, it was one too many.